What people don't see, particularly as it applies to practitioners, is the fact that once you're done at the scene, processing the scene and collecting all of the evidence and having the remains removed and getting ready to be autopsied, the next step in your job.
We got you in here right now. Obviously, there's always cases going on, so it's always going to be a good time to bring you in. But part of the reason we turned this around quickly is because we are coming up on the Kohberger sentencing. So this episode, I think I'm going to put this out like a day before.
Yeah.
Because that's happening next week.
23rd.
That's sentencing and everything. So obviously, most people out there are going to be familiar with the Idaho 4 and this college murder that happened that now Brian Kohberger has admitted to and pled guilty in exchange for a deal. We'll go through all that and we'll go through the case. But I do want to play something that I played the last time you were here when we did episode 170 and 171, because I think people should see this just to show how you handle these things. Ethan Chapin's mom showed up at, I think it was CrimeCon.
CrimeCon, yeah, Orlando.
In Orlando in late 2023. You did not know this, obviously,
nope.
But you were up on stage in front of thousands of people giving a presentation on various cases that included, at the time, the Idaho 4, because that was a year after the murders. And I want people to see this because, we were talking a few minutes ago about all the different people that sometimes forget what's on the other side of these cases, which is a real world thing, and the gravity that needs to be taken with that. And I feel like you did a pretty amazing job here just letting this happen. Go ahead, Joe. Oh, is it a little ad right before? Sorry, this isn't on YouTube. This is on an article link right here. So we got about 20 seconds. But there were 4 just... While we have a minute here, there were 4 total victims.
4 victims.
Ethan was one of them.
Yes.
The Gonzalez girl was another one. Morgan Mogan, and then
Maddie Mogan. Yeah.
Maddie Mogan, and then Xana
Kernodle. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So we'll go through that whole thing, but we got it now. Go ahead.
And I'm Ethan's mom.
So she did a Q&A. She walked up to the...
Yep. This is at the end of my talk, actually. I had no idea this was coming.
And I actually didn't sit through it because it's too hard to watch, but I do want all of you to know that these were 4 of the greatest kids, and that all of the great things that you read about them is legitimately true. And I can speak on behalf of my own son, who was an incredible human. And we miss him all terribly. But it's a very strange situation to be. I'm not a true crime follower, but I am now thrust into the epicenter of something that has become pretty incredible. But anyways, don't forget these kids. I appreciate, I did watch the beginning where you spoke a little bit on behalf of all 4 kids, and they're amazing. They were amazing, amazing kids in the prime of their life. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know, like you could see it. I'm sure people can see it on the camera there. You were pretty shocked when she walked up, but really gave her a chance to say what she needed to say, which is also like the part people can't forget here. So many times we make these cases about the vicious killer because we're so fascinated by how evil they are and whatever. But, it's not even like you're keeping score or something. I don't want to say it like that, but people get lost in the facts of the grisliness of the case that they don't take the temperature of the gravity of the situation. And in this case, kids that were cut down when they were 20 years old, which is just horrific on every level.
Yeah, it is. And you can't take the measure of it most of the time. And that's, and that's a thread that runs through all of these cases, not just the Idaho 4, but what people don't see, particularly as it applies to practitioners, is the fact that once you're done at the scene, processing the scene and collecting all of the evidence and having the remains removed and getting ready to be autopsied, the next step in your job is to deal with families. And I spent, I'd say, just as much time dealing with families as I did dealing with the dead. And what, you look at this poor woman, what kind of explanation, what kind of comfort are you actually going to offer her? There's nothing. There's not enough money in the world. There's not enough, vacuous promises that you can make her that everything's going to be better. And here's something else that I want to dispel right now. Whoever came up, whatever, I don't know, wizard came up with the idea of closure is full of shit. Because closure, it's one of the biggest lies that has ever been propagated, I think, in the mental health community. Because closure never happens. You think about these four kids, the families are left behind. Where's the closure? Explain that to me. Can you tell me where they actually going to get closure? Because there will always be an empty chair, forever and ever. Amen. There's nothing you can do to assuage their grief. Nothing. And again, I'll use this term multiple times. It goes to intellectual laziness, I think.
Intellectual laziness.
Yeah, and also dismissiveness when you use the term closure.
Yeah.
Because if you say, well, hopefully this is going to offer you some measure of closure, or hopefully someday you'll have closure. Okay, next, who's next? That way you've kind of shuffled them off.
Yes.
And it never goes away. In my work, when I was working as a death investigator, I still had parents. I had one guy that for 7 years he called me, generally once a month, and he was drunk. And he made a connection with me.
Right.
His son had hung himself. And and I've probably related the story previously, but it's...
Yeah, 146, I remember this.
Yeah, it pissed me off at first, but, it's just part of it. They just want somebody to talk to.
Yes.
And that's why I hate that term, closure. Absolutely hate it. And, I can't speak for her. Maybe she will. I hope she does. I hope that, but to me, it always seems this fantastical kind of pie in the sky thing.
It is.
Because we're trying to escape death and what happens to us with death. It's just not that simple. It's never that simple.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
It's also, like you said, such a terminology, academic kind of word.
It
like
is.
Closure. There's no emotion to that word. Do you think, though, that obviously this doesn't happen for everyone, especially when they lose someone so close to them in such a horrific way, but do you think it's possible for people like Ethan's mother to eventually get some level of peace?
Maybe, yeah. And it's never... I don't think that for any of these people that go through this, they never have like a static day,
Right.
Where they've achieved this higher level of peace, if you want to put it in Eastern terms. I don't think that happens. I think that it rises and falls with the tide. There will be certain things that will have that moment in time where it triggers their brain, whether it's seeing a toy in the house that child once played with, or maybe they're looking over old photographs or whatever. It could just be a change in the weather. Gee, my son used to like to sit out in the sun after a cold, blustery day. Even if it was still cold outside, he would just welcome that opportunity. Well, it's those little things that no one can anticipate, and it drags all that stuff back up in their mind. So, there's never really any end to it. in my estimation, at least, based upon my observations as a practitioner. I've never seen anybody actually achieve closure, certainly. Maybe some level of peace, but there's always that storm that's brewing right beneath the surface.
Yeah. It's just one of the things that sticks out to me. I have these moments in here with different guests that some of them will just stay in your head for a long time. But when you told the story in episode 146 about not even the story, just these stories of notifying people.
Yeah.
We call it notifications. And you
Yeah.
just alluded to it a few minutes ago, where you have to tell people what's going to be the worst day of their life, the worst possible news
The worst
you could
possible
ever
news, yeah.
tell them.
Yeah.
And you have to do it in a professional
Yeah.
way. And you know that their life is never going to be the same, but they're going to get all these people to come around them afterwards who are going to try to sell them this idea of closure.
Right.
And, it's not your job to tell them to ignore those people, because what the fuck do you say to someone that their earth has been shattered?
Yeah. And again, I used to, early on in my career, I made the mistake of saying early on, well, they didn't suffer, which makes me a liar. Out and out, because I know good and well that people suffered. But you can't bring yourself to tell somebody that. And you don't want to be over the top and ghoulish about it. And so, just from my own, I guess, personal, I don't know, who I am as a person, I got to the point where when that question was asked, and it would inevitably be asked, did they suffer? I'd say, I don't know. I don't know that they did. And then they'll try to get you to give them another measurement, relative to it. Did it take a long time for them to die? I don't know. I really don't. And that's something that as humans, we have to come to terms with individually. There is no one out there that can actually offer that information up to you and say specifically and truthfully that that's the amount of time that it took for somebody to die, or that their pain centers were not firing after this point in time. There's no way to calculate that. Okay? The best thing you can do is many times just simply say, I don't know. I just don't know. Instead of offering them these platitudes again, it goes back to closure. It's the same thing. Well, they're in a better place, or they're at peace now, or they didn't suffer. Well, it's intellectually dishonest, because you don't know, just putting that information out there, what kind of ripple effect it's going to have in that individual's life moving forward and how they view death. Now, you don't look at those sorts of things at that moment in time, but think about it just for a second, because if there's ever another death that occurs in their life, based upon this fallacy that you've offered up to them, that's still a continuing untruth there.
How hard was it for you to not put yourself, because again, like we said, you have to do this in a professional manner. How hard was it to not put yourself in their shoes, like when you're notifying a mother that her son died or something like that? Like, how hard was it to not think of your own kid and what would happen if the worst thing happened to you?
Well, when I first did it, the first notification I ever did, I think I was 21.
21,
yeah. I was the youngest at the time. I was told by a guy named Dr. Bill Eckert, who's this famous forensic pathologist, actually from New Jersey.
We make good talent here in New Jersey.
You're absolutely right.
It's a good answer.
He said I was the youngest medical legal death investigator in the country at that time, at a bigger office, and I remember thinking of that as a point of pride, and it was my own folly, and I'd not been properly trained at that point. I'd been really properly trained as to how to assess a body, how to do postmortem measurements, assessments, and even trauma assessments, and trying to understand everything that there is to try to understand surrounding a body at a scene, but no one ever prepares you. And I think the first weekend I worked, I was by myself, and I did several notifications. One in particular was a young girl that had been killed in a drunk driving thing, and I went and told her parents. And I should have known at that point in time that the bridge was out ahead for me, because I think the day you get 24 hours off after you've worked 72 back then, probably needed about as many days off as you did that you'd work. I stayed drunk. I stayed drunk. I sure did, and wept. I wept because I couldn't take the measure of what I had done, with the family. I talked about throwing a grenade, pulling a pin and throwing a grenade and shutting the door behind me into a room, and that's kind of what you do. But back to your question, I apologize. It's really hard to separate your own flesh from them, because you want to try to soothe them. I think on one level it's a natural thing, but as I got older, I realized that soothing that I would offer them is something that I would be absent from my own family or even my own self later on. You've got a finite amount of that in your body. So it's very difficult to walk that line. I made the mistake early on of taking on their grief. And then, but the thing about it is
taking on their grief.
Yeah, taking on their grief, or taking on, a lot of it had to do with guilt too. Taking on the guilt of having damaged them by virtue of the information that you're imparting to them. And there's that guiltiness that comes along with that. But the thing about it is, once you've recovered from that, you got another call holding.
Yeah.
And soon they kind of fade into the back of your mind. I submit to you that it never completely fades out of your mind. It's there. You cannot be that impactful in an environment that traumatizing to somebody and you not have a residue of that in your brain. And over a period of time,
Sure,
it accumulates.
You subconsciously compartmentalize it.
You do, to survive.
Yeah.
You do. But my big escape, Julian, was always being able to hide in science. I could justify it through the science, looking at wound dynamics and trying to understand what had happened to bring them to this end, what organ systems were impacted, what other kinds of trauma were there. Is this, like if it's an abuse case, is there evidence on the body that demonstrates that this is an ongoing case of abuse? Let's dig into that and try to understand that. Not necessarily what the root cause of the abuse was or anything like that, because again, that's not necessarily my department, but trying to understand the science behind it all. And you find yourself hiding in all of that, but you're still, it's like you said, man, you're still human. You're still flesh, at the end of the day.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.